we're going to factor by grouping. This is also sometimes called the AC method. We're going to choose a form and then give the final answer. So this is the trinomial that we're factoring. I'll come out here and work with it. 9x squared plus 18x plus 5. Now to do this method, you multiply the first and the last two numbers together. And I make a t-table out of that. So 9 times 5 equals 45. And I'm going to list the factors of 45. So you just start dividing. So 45 divided by 1 is 45. Now, since this is an odd number, you're not going to be able to divide evenly by even numbers. So I'm just going to do 3. 45 divided by 3 is 15. 45 divided by 5 is 9. 45 divided by 7 does not work, and then you've already got the 9. So once you start repeating yourself, you're actually finished. And then I'm going to make a note down here, and I'll explain that in a moment. Biggest first. So once you've done that, you bring down the first term, 9x squared. You bring down the sign that's after that, plus. Now we want to work backwards. We want the factors of 45 that when you add them equal 18. So when you look at this, 3 and 15, when you add those equal 18. So I'm going to put the biggest number first. So 15, and then you always put your letter with that. Now here's the situation. You're trying to split up your middle number is what you're doing. We have 15x, but we want 18x. So that 3 has to be a positive 3x because those two in the middle have to add up to the one above it. And then this, the positive 5, gets broken down. Now that step there that I'm looking at is called my form. That is the form. So we want 9x squared and then a plus sign. So I know it's not this one or this one. And then we want another plus sign and another plus sign. Okay, so I know that the correct one is this one. And then you just plug in the numbers to the form. So 9x squared, you just literally copy down what you have in this step here. So that whole thing is the form. Now we're going to actually finish the problem and factor it. I'm going to take the first two numbers and put parentheses around them. I'm going to look at the numbers themselves and see what the biggest thing I can divide those by. I can divide them by 3. And each of these two terms also has an x. So I'm going to take out of this set of parentheses a 3x. So 9 divided by 3 is 3. I have 2 x's. I took 1 out. That's 1 left. Then I have a plus sign. 15 divided by 3 is 5. And I have the x, but I took it out. Now, you do not put parentheses around the next two. You just write down the sign that's after your parentheses, a plus sign in this case. And you look at these numbers, 3 and 5, and see what you can divide those by. Well, you might not think you can divide them by anything, but actually, if the answer to that is they have nothing in common, you have to put a 1. Because technically, you can divide anything by 1. So now, you write down what's in the parentheses. And then everything else that's not in the parentheses, they have to go together. And that's your factored form. That's the factored answer. So 3x plus 5 times 3x plus 1, and you're done. Okay. Excuse me. So that was a lot. So let's go over it again. 4x squared minus 4x minus 3. You take the first and the last number and multiply them. 4 times 3 equals 12. Then you write down the factors of 12. 12 divided by 1 is 12. 12 divided by 2 is 6. 12 divided by 3 is 4. And then you're done because you're starting to repeat yourself. So we want the biggest first. Write down the first number, 4x squared. And the sign after it, minus. Now we want to subtract to get 4. You're working backwards. So when you subtract 6 and 2, you get a 4. So you always put the biggest number first and your letter with that. So don't look at the signs. We're just looking at the numbers at this point. So I have a 6. I want a 4. So this 2, I'm going to have to take away. Actually, let me look at that again. Because that has to add it to the middle and it did not. So I have a 6, I want a 4. Oh, I have a negative 6 and I want a negative 4. So I have to add 2. Sorry about that. Because these two middle ones have to add up to the one above it. So you can kind of check yourself as you go. And then bring down the next term. Put parentheses around the first, oops, before I do that. That's my factored form. So I have a minus, a plus, and a minus. Minus, plus, minus, it's this one here. Okay, so then put in the numbers. That's a 6x, and that's a 2x, minus 3. Okay, that's your factored form. So now we're going to finish it. Parentheses around the first 2. I can divide those numbers by 2 and take an x out. 4 divided by 2 is 2. I have 2 x's. I take 1 out. That's 1 left over, minus sign. 6 divided by 2 is 3. I have an x, but I took it out. Write down the sign after the parentheses. These two numbers don't have anything in common, the 2 and the 3, so you have to put a 1. You write down what's in the parentheses. Sorry, I need to wake up here. And then whatever's not in the parentheses, they have to go together. So 2x minus 3 and 2x plus 1. And this is not a negative here. My pen just kind of slipped a little bit. So that's the answer.